had no idea. A year ago, when we were informed that a strange new virus had arrived on our shores and we entered a time of lockdown, we had no idea what awaited us as individuals, as families, as a country, as a world. Even now we ask, what just happened to us and continues to happen to us? We've heard stories from older generations about world wars that required houses to go dark, living in candlelight, rationing butter, stories of great courage, stories of how hardship led to transformation, of how women became a crucial part of the workforce in a determined effort to support our country, where images of Rosie the Riveter celebrating the strength, creativity, and courage of women radically changed our economic structures. Like many before, we had no idea that we were entering a time that would go down in history, a time we would tell future generations about, and probably, just like those of us who sat listening to stories of old, those listening will probably take it in and not really know what it must have been like. Here's one thing I believe. We are more tired than we know. We are more traumatized than we will admit. And we are more grief-stricken than we can imagine. 1 in 3 Americans know someone who died from COVID, and our grief meter is off the charts. We are exhausted to the core of our being. And our desire for this to be over is so profound that it drives many into behaviors that embrace denial. And today, our lectionary invites us to remember a story about a people who had been journeying in the wilderness for far too long. They just wanted to stop trying, stop having to be suspended in constant unpredictability. They wanted things to settle down so they could begin rebuilding their lives, their traditions, their businesses. We meet them in a place of exhaustion. They have traveled so far, and they can actually see the promised land off in the distance, but those darn Edomites won't let them pass through their land, and it's a very, very long way around the outskirts of Edom. So they begin to complain about the food, the length of the journey, and the ways God is treating them. They complain about the leadership, their neighbors, and they actually regret ever starting the journey in the first place, even though the Exodus freed them from their oppressors and broke the bonds of their slavery. I know it's hard to believe, but they found themselves daydreaming about going back to slavery. At least in Egypt, the life of a slave was predictable. Now, in this story, God's apparent solution was odd, to say the least, even offensive to those of us with some sense of theological refinement. God sent poisonous snakes. This is like going to the doctor to complain about a sore foot, and the doctor takes a hammer and slams it down on one of your fingers. There. Now you can focus on a different kind of pain. Your sore foot now seems like nothing in comparison to your throbbing thumb. Pay the receptionist on your way out. Moses is then instructed to make a bronze image of a poisonous snake so that when people who have been bitten look at it, they will be healed. I think the idea here is to remind the Israelites that God is always the one to turn to in crisis, not some nostalgic return to the past. This image of a poisonous snake wrapped around a staff has become a symbol of the medical world, including the American Medical Association. The image actually has its roots in Greek mythology, but we also find it in our scriptures when, if you don't know, the seraphim mentioned in the book of Isaiah were angelic beings described as snakes with wings. How did such dreadful images become so central in the stories of our faith and connected to healing? And what is there in all of this to help us this week and in the weeks to come? Many years ago, at a point of exhaustion in my life, I found myself at a crossroads. During that time, I was having nightmares almost every night. In some, I found myself drowning. In some, I was being pursued by some kind of monstrous person. And I remember having many dreams of being bitten by snakes. A mentor of mine suggested that I speak to a Jungian dream analyst, and so I did. As I shared the recurring dream about snakes, his face lit up and he smiled. I was kind of shocked by his response, actually. He said, "This is great news, fantastic news. You are ready for transformation." Needless to say, I was puzzled. "Do tell, doctor." He went on to say that a snake is a symbol of transformation, a being that breaks through the surface of your skin, ignoring the superficiality of the way you appear to others and demanding a breakthrough. He also went on to say that all fearful dreams carry with them this sense of threat because we fear transformation. A drowning child is an invitation to the unconscious. A threatening predator, an invitation to turn and face something you've been avoiding. He then mentioned not only our story today in the book of Numbers, but also John's reference to Jesus being lifted up like a snake on the cross. Can it be that this threatening time is inviting us to be transformed? Well, we are quite willing to have our skin broken by a syringe needle so that we might be saved. Are we also willing to have our soul pierced by God in order to be healed in body, mind, and soul? Will we choose to see our challenges as doorways into a future that God is inviting us toward? Or will we embrace fear and long for Egypt? There is so much to complain about. A true and rather comical story about my time at St. Paul's Cathedral in Boston emerged from a misprint in the bulletin. The announcement was supposed to invite people to Compline, an evening liturgy in our prayer book, but it was misspelled and appeared as an invitation to complain. We had the largest turnout of the year, and we wondered if it was associated with the misspelling. Complaining is a result of looking back and not having the courage to see a new future. It seems so secure, so predictable back there. Complaining results when our exhaustion gets the best of us and we forget the promised land that is waiting for us, a place where the dignity and potential of every human being is embraced and opportunity is available to all, a place where you see the full and rich results of just taking a leap of faith and trusting that God is really with you all the way. One final story about one of our own. Andrew Gustafson gave me permission to share this true and very recent story with you all. Now, we have been praying for Andrew, and this is why. He donated the right lobe of his liver to his uncle-in-law, Sam. The surgery was at UCSF last week, and it was successful. Now, for some time, I have been in a complaining mood about our Zoom services. This is no way to do services. It's literally two-dimensional. There are no amens or laughter because everyone is on mute. We are in a wilderness here, and Edom is in the way of getting to the promised land. Dare I say it, I have despised this way of doing church for a very long time, and it has drained the soul right out of me. I can't pass the peace to you, hug you, look into your eyes and hear how you are doing. I can't hang with you sip coffee, offer you a donut hole. I can't have spontaneous moments with you. Can't sit across the aisle from our amazing choir and be lifted by their voices. I can't break bread and actually put it in your hands as I give thanks for each of you individually. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I relate to the Israelites. Long lines, lousy food, and poor service. Now back to Andrew. Here's the email I received from him a couple of days ago. And I quote, "We are so thankful for your prayers and for the blessings the Casserole Brigade will be bringing to our doorstep in the coming days. We made it through the surgeries without complications last Friday, and we both have been recovering well. It will be several months until we fully recover, and we are thankful that we are already well on our way to doing so. Attending virtual church last Sunday while in the hospital was wonderful as I sang along to the hymns to build my lung capacity back to where it needs to be." So while I was complaining about this online format, someone else was giving thanks for it. While I was feeling sorry for myself, someone we care about was lying in a hospital bed, singing along with the hymns as a way to rebuild their lung capacity. While I was longing to go back to the way things used to be, I was not peering into a future where a new way of doing things will reach opportunities never before imagined. I have a colleague who, whenever I start complaining, likes to say, "Reality bites." Whatever God is up to in this time, as people of faith, we can be assured it's not about going back to bondage, complaining as we go, but about freedom, about transformation, about breakthroughs. Thinking forward can sting at times, but be assured that if we trust in the one who is pierced for our sake, we will keep the faith, shed our fear, and believe that God will meet us in an uncertain future. We will once again remember that a new land awaits us, a land filled with promise. Amen.